we will go ahead and call the meeting to order for today. So meeting of the Horns Committee. And our first order of business is the approval of the minutes. So are there any changes to the minutes, Councilmember Murillo or Councilmember Medina?
Nothing for me. Looks good.
Same here.
Okay, awesome. Then we will go ahead and move on to announcements. Does anybody have any announcements to make? All right. Then it looks like next is new items. So the 2024 Spring Community Investment Round with Alicia.
Good morning, council members. Good morning, colleagues. I am Alicia Arculari Montoya, and I, along with Sarah Carroll, will be presenting the Community Investment Financing Round for the spring. So I'm going to share my screen. Give me just one moment. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So just a quick reminder, this community investment financing round is a program that was created to support the housing strategy and us meeting the goals of the housing strategy. There were several programs that were created. This one specifically was created to support the development of affordable housing units in the city and has helped us a lot. We have well over 300 units for this round, and so it really is making quite the impact in helping us create those units for the city. The components of the application for this specific spring round are, of course, the alignment with our housing strategy, that the projects meet identified housing needs in our community, the demographics that are being served based on principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are specific average median incomes that we are trying to target and that are being served through these projects. We look at the cost effectiveness of the project, how well the partner or developer is leveraging their funding, and how many actual available resources we have to distribute for the project. So those are overall the main components that we consider. The types of projects that we consider are new construction, acquisition, rehab, public improvements. And I did want to emphasize the new program that we created there towards the end of 2023, the land banking program. As going through that first phase of it towards the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, and the assignment of the first land banking parcel to Mercy Housing. In regards to timeline, this is a fairly long process. It takes a lot of people to come together to make this possible. And so, as you can see, we started there at the end of February. We do send out an email blast and reach out to everybody through social media, newspaper. We update our website. We try and reach out to as many interested individuals as possible, whether we know or not. We try to make that information as public as possible. And so the application opened officially on February 28th. It closed there towards the end of March, so it was open for just about a month. And then we bring together the review committee. The review committee takes a look at the applications and makes sure that the application is aligned with the components of the application, and that it's actually a feasible project. So it's well represented. We have individuals from different departments, including the voice of the community, which is our Citizens Advisory Committee committee. Where are we at in regards to timeline? Today is the 15th of May. And so the next step is to present the recommendations that came from the committee to our council members, and specifically starting with our policy committee. so today, and then we're hoping that we'll be able to finalize and issue final award letters sometime in June, hopefully mid-June. The review panel consists of mentioned different departments, so planning, real property service has also been very supportive of the work that we do. Finance is important in these projects because we want to make sure that they're feasible and that they are going to be safe for the city to support. Obviously, the Housing and Community Development Division is a part of it, and then our Citizens Advisory Committee. We had just under $30 million combined with private activity bonds, home CDBG funding for this round. And we received a total of 8 agencies that submitted an application, 13 applications in total. The total amount requested was $44.7 million, and we awarded $26.6 million for 339 units. For the criteria, we look at the financial feasibility of the project. We look to make sure that the project is going to serve low and moderate income households, that they have experience on similar projects, that these are projects that are transit-oriented projects. We look at the number of units. Are they able to maximize the number of units that they're giving us? We look at the design and overall outcome of the project. Here is a list of the 13 applications that we received. As you can see, there are some that are doubles and even triples. That is because of the different funding sources that we have. So if they are interested in more than just one funding source, they would have to submit a separate application to ensure that the application that they are submitting the information and documentation that we need specifically for the requirements of that funding source. So that would differ from private activity bond to home to CDBG funds or even general funds when when such funds are available. And I am going to pass it to Sarah Carroll. She is the supervisor of housing development, and she oversaw this process for my division. So I will let her speak more specifically about the projects. Go ahead, Sarah, and I can drive for you.
Sure. And if you'll go back one slide for me just really quickly. My name is Sarah Carroll. I'm the Housing Development Supervisor, and I'm happy to present the final recommendations for the 2024 spring round of community investment financing. As you can see from the scores, the different funding sources, there were different scores for different applications. And where we decided to take a break on the scoring is anything that scored below a 70% on the scores did not receive funding. So next slide, please. We had, again, the 8 different agencies that requested funding. And so the recommendations you can see to the far right, we had 4 applications for private activity bonds, 3 applications received home funding, and we had no recommendations for community development block grant funding on this funding spring round. Next slide, please. So we recommended funding for the stables. This is Grovewood Community Development. They are actually in the process of doing another project right now in the city of Aurora. They are formally known as Community Development Association, or CHATA, and they actually requested $5 million in private activity bonds and $1.6 million in home. They would serve target of 30% to 80% AMI, which is called average scoring at this time. They're going to do 89 units, and this is an actual historic site that's known as the Stables over at 10850 East Exposition Avenue. They received a score of 92.25%, and we recommended funding of $3,717,884 in private activity bonds and $420,000 in home funding. Next slide, please. Stanley 98 is a land banking project that we did with the Aurora Housing Authority over off East 25th and Joliet Street. They are recommending to do 75 units on that parcel. They would be doing 30% to 70% of AMI. They requested $7 million in private activity bonds, $2 million in home, and $1 million in community development block grant funding. Because this is a new construction project, they would not be eligible for community development block grant funds. So with a score of 92.83, we recommended $7 million in private activity bonds and $1.125 million in home funding. Next slide, please. Fitzsimmons Gateway is a project that we had provided funding for in a previous round. They actually have an additional gap in financing, and they are doing 210 units of apartments, multifamily that already is in the works. We're still working on agreements with them, and because they had an additional gap, we worked with them. They are providing housing for those 30 to 70% of AMI. They requested $3.9 million in private activity bonds, and to fill that gap, we awarded them the additional $3.9 million in PAB with a score of 105.5. Next slide, please. The Aurora Global Village is our first land banking site here at the city of Aurora. This one is by Mercy Housing, and this is located at 15961 East Colfax Avenue, as well as 15978 East 16th Avenue. It is proposed 115 units, serving 30 to 70% of the area median income. They requested $20 million in private activity bonds. That pretty much would have almost wiped us out of private activity bonds. And looking at all of the other requests for private activity bonds with a score of 95, we made the decision to give them half of their request at 10 million private activity bonds. That's our recommendation. Next slide, please. 1900 South Chambers is a Brothers redevelopment project. They have acquired land at 1900 South Chambers. They are proposing to work with residents 30% of AMI and below. They had a funding request of $500,000 in home and $500,000 in CDBG. Again, this is a new construction project, and because it is new construction, there is no eligibility with community development block grant funding. So the recommendation with a score of 86.25 was to provide them $475,501 in home funding. Next slide, please. The East Colfax Mixed Income Neighborhood Trust was from the agency East Colfax Collective. They were proposing 48 units. This was at 1380 to 1390 Moline Street. This is an existing project that they were recommending. They were asking for funding to go in and rehabilitate the existing units. We have not worked with this agency before, and they were requesting $720,000 in home funds. Having not worked with them in prior rounds, we had a score of 90, which is fairly high, but working with the committee, there were some concerns having not worked with them before, and doing a risk analysis, we felt that this was fairly risky, giving them nearly $1 million in home funding. So for this round, there was a recommended $0 award, but we would like to get to know this developer so that we can work with them in the future. Next slide, please. Gateway Domestic Violence, they are trying to build a new shelter. They would like to do 30 units for those suffering from domestic violence. So they would be working with residents at 30% AMI or below. They had a score of 55, which was below our 70 threshold. They had asked for $750,000 in home and $750,000 in CDBG. CDBG is not an eligible use of funds for building a new shelter or building any new construction. And so at this time, because they had not identified a space, our recommendation was $0. Next slide, please. 1180 Kingston LLC. This agency we have not worked with before either. They were wanting to build 40 units and work with residents at 30% AMI or below. They were requesting 1 million in community development block grants. Their application score was 39.5, which fell below our 70 threshold, and our recommendation, because it was CDBG, we cannot build new units with CDBG. Our recommendation was $0 at this time. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah.
Yes, ma'am.
So our question to council with the recommendations is, do you support this project to move forward to study session?
Okay, thank you so much to both of you. And Sarah, I apologize for not acknowledging you at the beginning as we're introducing the item. I'll make sure I keep that in mind in the future. Also wanted to welcome Mayor Kaufman to the meeting. So we'll start with questions. Councilmember Murillo, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I think this is pretty straightforward on my end. And I think that makes sense, especially for the organization that had a really high like alignment score. And I know y'all do your due diligence in vetting these applications, but I hear you on the relational piece. So I liked hearing that y'all will work on connecting with them from a relational standpoint, just so that there's some connection and familiarity, and it doesn't just feel like this random group asking for a lot of money, and you guys can speak to the, like their intention, how they work as an organization, and the quality of their work. So I really like to hear that.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Medina.
Yes, I'm good with everything as well. And yeah, I had Grovewood come out last night to my town hall, and it was well received by the constituents there. So they definitely had a lot of good support for that activity there with that group. So I'm glad to see it moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Kaufman.
Well, I just appreciate the risk assessment and but not discounting them, but having an open door in the future, I think that's helpful.
So I had a couple of questions. First, on the Fitzsimmons Gateway, how much was the previous amount that we already gave them for this project?
Give me just one moment and I will look up that amount really quickly.
Yeah, because it's one of the larger awards that we made this time. And if I recall correctly, it was also a fairly significant amount before, but I don't remember the number off the top of my head. And right, 210 units is great, definitely important to be providing that size of a project. But I just want to make sure that as we're working with folks and we're giving them significant amounts, that we're not setting the expectation that they come back again for significant amounts of funding.
Sure. So Fitzsimmons Gateway, we have given 1 million in home. And I believe there was one other, but I'm double checking.
And I guess, so yeah, my concern is, right, if they come and say, we need 1 million, actually we need 4 million more. Like that's a question for me about kind of either their due diligence, or did they have an increase in construction costs, or like what happened there to result in that large of a difference?
Sure. They did end up having an increase in development costs, and we're still in the middle of writing their first agreements on the home funds, and we ended up learning that they had a $4.5 million gap. And so we wanted to help fill that gap. And with private activity bonds, that doesn't count against their $15,000 cap towards their subsidy per unit because it's a different type. It's not our federal grants. It's our private activity bonds.
And because this project is there towards the end and beginning to start construction, it's not unusual for that construction cost to increase. So it didn't necessarily raise any alarms or concerns for us when we were reviewing it.
Okay, thank you for that context and that background.
Sure.
And then with respect to Brothers Redevelopment, I understand we couldn't give them any CDBG because it doesn't qualify. But they're covering the 30% AMI and below, which is often difficult to get folks that want to develop for that population. So are there any other ways that we can get them closer to their ask of $1 million? Just the 475,000 is less than half of what they asked for, and they're building a high demand and really difficult product.
Sure. We will reach out to them and let them know that we have additional funding coming. We just received our allocation for 2024 funds, so we will let them know that those are available and we'll ask them to reapply in the summer so that we can get them additional funding.
Okay, excellent. And yes, I do want to acknowledge that staff are facing a concern in terms of receiving and being awarded the federal funds in a timely manner. There have been a lot of different hangups in that process. So thank you all for still moving forward on your end with all of that going on in the background. We really appreciate it. And then for Gateway, it sounds like they applied for funds that they're not eligible for.
Correct.
However, again, they're serving that 30% AMI, and there's definitely some concern about how we as a city, broadly speaking, are supporting domestic violence survivors. And so I guess my question is there some way also to work with them on saying, you know what, the CDBG is not an option because of the type of project you're doing, but can we work with you on something that your project would be eligible for? Although it sounds like they also don't have a site. So maybe for the summer round, having some conversations with them about how, what can we do to help you meet your goals? And is there information that we can help provide you?
Correct.
I'll take
Is-
this one, Sarah.
Sure.
Give me,
Okay.
yeah,
Thank
let
you.
me take this one. We really want to work with them. We really want to support them because they are really the only domestic violence shelter that is applying for funding, and the mission and the work that they do is really important in the community. However, we have funded this organization a couple times in the past, and we had to bring our money back because the project wasn't ready to go. And so that causes for us to have issues with timeliness and things like that. And those put at risk our funding. And so we want to support them. Sarah has been working very closely with them. We are cautious with the projects and we do want to see the project be more close to being ready so that we're not putting at risk the limited funding that we have. So if you want to add anything to that, Ms. Sarah, go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt, but I did want to emphasize they are an important organization for us. We have had funded them in the past. We're just a little cautious right now just because of the issues that causes in regards to our timeliness.
I would like to mention that as soon as we closed and we were prepared to give you our recommendations, they did email us and let us know that they have found a site that their board has voted to move forward on. So we will give them the opportunity to apply in the summer as well, so that we can either help them acquire the site or move forward with building or, refinishing or whatever it is that they need to do with what they've found.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much also for your support of the organizations as you're kind of trying to get as much housing as we can within the community for folks that need the low and moderate income housing. And so on that note, with respect to EC3, I would just recommend probably connecting with folks in Denver because I know they've done a lot of work in Denver. Their kind of area of coverage spans over both, East Denver and Aurora along Colfax. And so I know they've done a lot of different business development, tenant-based rental assistance, and other kind of grant programs with the city of Denver. So that would probably be one way to kind of build that relationship, have that conversation, and maybe look again at the summer round for them after you've had that opportunity.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, well, oh, and then I was just wondering with the 1180 Kingston, again, looking at serving and a range of AMI that we really need to serve, why was the score so low?
Let me pull up the
Um,
notes really quickly.
Okay. Like, I'm not doubting you all, just trying to understand when someone submits an application, like what factors lead to that low of a score for an application. And while Sarah's looking at that, I'm just wanted to kind of note, it looks like the main reason why there were no CDBG awards is because the majority of the applicants were not eligible for CDBG with their projects, even if they applied for that. Really only EC3 was doing a project that is that would be eligible for CDBG, right?
Right. Yep, that's correct.
Okay, all right.
May I get back to you, council member? Because
Yes.
staff has not put those notes in Teams yet.
Okay, yep, no problem. I just, yeah, obviously fully acknowledge that sometimes folks submit an application that just doesn't meet the requirements and that's why they score low, but just kind of some more specifics on what types of issues cause that. Because if we have folks that are trying to meet that 0 to 30 AMI, we want to be able to support them whenever
Sure.
it's going to make sense, right? When we expect them to do things timely, complete their project, all of those things. So,
Yes.
thank you both
Thank
again
you.
for that. And with that, does the committee support moving this forward? I support.
I do as well.
I support.
Okay, thank you both. All right, then we will go ahead and move this forward.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any miscellaneous matters for consideration? Right, any updates from community members? I don't see anybody trying to speak. All right, well, with that being said, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. And thank you all so much
Thanks,
for your time this
everyone.
morning.